Who's the guy who's your Vince in the reenactment? Because he has the Vince walk down. First of all, love the show. And the one thing I gotta say off the bat is someone needs to buy Dave Meltzer another filing cabinet. Because his entire office is a mess and it drives me up a wall whenever I see it.
It's kind of amazing. Like, he knows where everything in there is. Like, I remember when we were first in there, we asked him for like a specific article, and he literally just went, pulled it out of a pile. It was like, okay, well, at least he knows where it all is. Like,
you guys have been talking to like a lot of people who have been, for a better term, like since the beginning. So you got like JR and Mantell, and you got Foley and Belter and all these people. Like, what's it been like to? No one's ever really broadcasted like the history of wrestling like this before. What's it been like to kind of get this insight from all these people who have been there for so long and seen pretty much everything behind the scenes, all these stories? Like, how's that been as wrestling fans, like on your own?
Man, like Evan and I, like when we first, we connected ourselves like over wrestling, and as our friendship was like growing, we were kind of diving like more and more back into like wrestling history. And like Evan and I we really, the things that inspired us as kids like are really still like super influential to us. And so we were kind of like just passing back these stories back and forth that we were finding, just researching wrestling history, watching like old like shoot interviews, and just becoming like obsessive about, the research, and just finding, how, these guys that we grew up with, like with all their action figures and the like merchandise, and, we love the larger than life characters like growing up, and then to see, what the wrestling world and that impact it had on their personal lives and their family. And then you just read of these stories of, it getting to the point where fans would get like so riled up, or there would be so much heat on a heel in the ring that fans would pull out guns and just start firing into the ring and stuff. And it was just like, oh my God, like this is an art form unlike anything else, that it can reach to those like points. So now for us, like to have been obsessed with the research and to now like, interview these people and find even more information that we couldn't even find in the books or, old interviews that we find, like, it's like, that's like a great feeling. And I think it's like almost like there's like an addictive quality to that as well too, where we're just so like, we want to find, this information and unearth these stories that, that haven't been told. And we try to please the most hardcore wrestling fan that there is in a way, and try and give them new information, but also, try to tell these stories in a way that even someone who hadn't watched wrestling before can connect with it and, enthralled by the storytelling.
This is a broad question, but how has the wrestling community taken to it? Which is a broad, because the wrestling community never agrees on anything. It's splintered in a million.
Yeah. Yeah.
But how has that been? And like, has there been an influx of people who are like, I've never really watched wrestling, and this has got me interested in watching this because I'm able to connect on it on a more human level, knowing that because a lot of these times these wrestlers are put up like superheroes, and they're kind of, and for so many years they've lived that lifestyle of like, never give away the game, always kayfabe, always kayfabe, always kayfabe. Has it been an influx of like new people getting interested in wrestling, as well as a positive response from hardcore wrestling fans?
I find that for the most part, within the wrestling community, wrestlers and fans, that the response has been positive around our show. I think for so many years and decades that anytime you were to see like a wrestling documentary outside of maybe a few, it is still being kind of produced under the umbrella of the WWE or the consolidated sort of wrestling world. And I think the actual rawness of who these people really are in real life has been something that hasn't really come through that often, because in order to tell these stories, there's corporate interests to protect, there's characters to protect, there's all these things to protect, and I think that there is a real hunger in this community for that rawness of who these people really are, and what are their stories, and especially beyond the wrestlers, when you're talking about family members, who maybe sometimes didn't fully sign up for this lifestyle, or a consequence of the lifestyle, or they've had to endure it, and so I think for us, it's like, I think that most of the wrestling community appreciates it because it is, the way that Jason and I approach the material. We are fans. We had action figures of most of these wrestlers when we grew up, so we appreciate, their work. But at the same time, we lead with trying to be empathetic and to show a human portrayal of these individuals that have never really been, covered like this before. And I think that to some feels like it's not, maybe it's something that shouldn't be told. But I think for the most part, to most people in the wrestling community, it is important because it's been long overdue in many cases.
So you're doing Brian Pillman in season 3, Nick Gage, the North Korea, the Korea collision with Flair and all them. Is there anything that you haven't been able to, any stories or people you haven't been able to lock in and talk to about stuff? There's
been times that we've tried to do episodes, and at that given moment, it hasn't come together. Like, for example, we tried to do the Chris Benoit story in season 1, which I'm very glad we didn't do because we weren't ready for it by any means necessary. And then Steroid Trials, we also tried to make as an episode in season 1 and kind of failed spectacularly at getting people to talk to us because we just had no credibility. No one knew what the show is, and it was we just hadn't have that. So now, I think with season 3, we've, in totality with all the rest of the shows, we've kind of done most of the episodes that we've really wanted to do. I mean, obviously there's a couple of them that we still want to tell that aren't necessarily overt access based, but I think for the really hard ones that we want to tell, we have.
Who's been your favorite person interview through all this, and why is it Earl Hebner? Because he thought you guys were
we just talked about that. Man, well, Jason, who's your favorite?
Probably one of my favorite wrestlers growing up was Jake the Snake Roberts, and so it had always been my dream growing up to work with him. I even tried on my first feature film, Hobo with a Shotgun. I wanted him to play the villain in the movie, and I actually had I got an email and reached out, but it couldn't work out at the time, But I always thought I was disappointed by it, but I thought, man, someday we're gonna work together. I think I even wrote that in my response back to him. I was one day we are gonna work together. And then so for now we've done a few interviews with him and have told his stories, and we've got the Grizzly Smith story coming up for season 3, which is a story I don't think anyone's ever heard, about Jake. There's been a few documentaries about him, but people don't realize, he comes from a wrestling family too. His dad was a wrestler, Grizzly Smith, and his sister, Rockin' Robin, and his brother, Sam Houston. Now to be able to dive down that story and get to tell, Jake's family story is, that means a big deal to me. Because I've had so much respect for him, and always thought he was one of the best, wrestlers at creating a performance in the ring.
There's been a lot of really good standout interviews that are fantastic, but just in terms of the practical nature of making a show where you need those sound bites. And you need them, and you need to make sure that you have the spine of an episode, and it's very concise. I have to say Jim Cornette in a lot of ways because, it's amazing how he can speak on anything and deliver to you in exactly the nice little neat package that you need it for the edit room. So anytime we have Jim in an episode, the reason he shows up so much is mainly because it's so useful. He's captivating, he's entertaining, but he's concise, and he's also just right on the money in terms of, okay, great, he said exactly what we need to say in 10 seconds. Now we can, but he's also a great interview and a wealth of knowledge. So he's someone that for me is always okay, when we go there, I know I'm getting exactly what I need.
Yeah. He still knows how to cut a promo.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
The best.
Down the road, if I can request a episode on the rise and fall of Scott Steiner's Shoney's in Atlanta, Georgia, there's probably not a lot there, but if that could happen,
you never know.
I was really bummed. I'll just say this and use this as an opportunity to say I was very bummed that Scott Steiner, that we weren't able to really get him for, because he was over in North Korea, for the collision in Korea, and it didn't work out to get him in the episode, and I was very bummed about that. So I want to get Scott Steiner in the show, and I don't know if the rise and fall of Shoney's is going to be what it's going to take. Anything to get him in. I definitely want to, because I want to put some chainmail on one of our actors and shoot that backlit, please. So
you just sneak one more question in. Who's the guy who's your Vince in the reenactment? Because he has the Vince walk down.
It's a good story. So the actor that plays, his name is Felipe. Amazing guy. He didn't know anything about wrestling. Nothing about wrestling. He's an actor. He shows up. He plays doctors on Canadian television or whatever. He doesn't know anything. He is
a doctor.
Is he a doctor?
Yeah.
But I think he plays doctors, doesn't he?
No, he was showing up from his to the audition. He was I
didn't know it was a shoot.
From the hospital, yeah.
Oh, I thought he was just method acting.
He had no idea what he was walking into, and I showed him a clip on my phone of Vince McMahon just doing the strut, down to the ring, and he just he started I got footage on my phone somewhere of it. He started doing it in the office, and I showed it to Evan, and we were just in love with this guy. He was.
Well, he's a brilliant actor. So if he's a doctor or an actor, hopefully he's pursuing acting, because he absorbed Vince McMahon, and he's amazing because he's from Brazil, and he has an accent, of course, and there's times where he's on set and we just give him lines to scream at his his underlings, and it's amazing when he's like, they're going to WCW. What do we do with WCW? It's amazing to see him screaming about WCW. He has no idea what he's talking about, but he's such a great guy and we love him. He's been on the show 800 times because Vince always shows up in the episodes, so he's always got a spot with us.
Awesome, guys. Thank you. I'll let you go. Great.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam.
All right. Thanks, Adam. Bye-bye.